Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel Watercolor Impressions. This is continuation of absolute beginner video series for watercolors, and this week we are going to learn how to paint water. Painting water can be simple, but yet it's tricky. Before we go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. It is quite necessary. Water should look really good in any kind of painting. The biggest trap that beginners, and even when I started with watercolors, I fall into overworking my water. So making it look too complicated and too many strokes and making it unrealistic. The secret of water or any kind of painting is keep it simple. Let's look some examples what I'm painting now. So I painted 3 signboards and which I'm going to be reflecting on the water. Whenever you paint water, think of water as a glass plane. So whatever object you place, it's going to reflect back to it. And you could see the first one is the straight one, and the second one is the distorted one, and the third one is the slanted one, and which is the opposite of the first one. And the first one you could see, it's kind of like a mirror, it just reflects as it is. Whereas in the second one, and you could see there's a little bit of distortion happening. So this distortion happens in water when there's wind in the water and there is a lot of waviness in the water. And the third one is the same thing, but it's kind of slanted and it is an opposite angle off in the water. And let's take all this example what we learned and let's put this into practice. So I'm going to paint 3 boards, and you could see I split into 3 panels. So the first board, it's going to be reflecting as there is water and distortion, and the second one is going to be soft reflections, which happens in a foggy day and early morning, and the third one is the one which is going to be reflecting as it is. So the water is going to reflect as a mirror. I'm going to do a basic water wash, and we can put the reflections on top of it. And if you want to learn how to do washes for absolute beginners, check the video tutorial above. And let's get started. So the first thing we have to do is I'm going to wet the paper where the board sits, and you can see I'm taking a lot of water there and I'm putting cobalt blue there so it kind of gets blurry. Even though it looks a little bit darker now, it's going to dry a little bit. And if you go out and if you check, some of the water have this glow. It starts from cobalt blue and it will have some warm wash, and that gives a glow in the water. So I'm putting a little bit of yellow ochre in it, and as it comes down I'm using French Ultramarine blue to increase the pigment consistency. Even water has a little bit of depth. The gradient starts from lighter and to the darker at the bottom. And as it goes to the darker, I'm going to make it darker using French Ultramarine blue and neutral tint. And this also acts as a little bit of lead-in for your painting as well. And this also acts as a lead-in for this reflection painting as well. As you could see, and this surface came out pretty good, but I did this pretty quick because I want to keep it simple, and yet I want to read this as water. And if I was doing a regular painting, I would spend more time on blending my washes properly so there's a proper gradient coming from top to bottom. So I'm also taking clean water, and the last one we're going to reflect as it is. So I'm just taking a clean brush and taking a lot of paint from it as though the board is reflecting on the water. I went ahead and painted the boat. Now let's go and paint the reflections. The first reflection is the distorted one. So there's going to be a lot of letter Z on it, and we're going to break the shape and do the markings as less as possible. But the first step is we have to mix a little bit of a darker pigment. So I'm mixing Cobalt Turquoise and a little bit of French Ultramarine blue in it. So I'm going to paint the shape as it is, but it's on the opposite side. But as soon as I finish the shape, I'm going to do some marks which goes zigzag or letter Z, and that makes a distorted reflections on the water, and it makes that it looks like the board is reflecting on the water as it is. But before it dries out, I'm darker pigment neutral tint, and I'm painting where the board sits on the water, and that will anchor the board on the water. So it's the same process. I'm going to paint the shape first, so I'm painting the owl first. And I'm painting on the opposite side since it's reflecting on the water, and I'm going to paint the top shape as well. And this is going to be softer reflection I was telling about. It's if it happens on the foggy day or early morning. And I also painted a darker pigment where the board anchors, so I'm using neutral tint for it. And I have painted the softer reflection not yet, so I'm going to do it at the end. So let's focus on the third board. Whenever you paint this kind of reflection, think that you're painting the boat on a plane or the object on the plane of a mirror. So it will reflect as it is with the same color and everything. So that's the exact same thing I'm doing. So I just mirrored the owl first with the same color, with the same decals too. Now I'm painting the top part as well. And before it dries out, and I'm going to put the darker pigment so that it anchors on the water. And I'm not trying to do a pretty good job of it, but I'm just trying to make it impressionistic as possible and make it simple as possible. So now let's do the softer reflections. So I'm going to take clean water now, and I'm going to rub it off from the mid part to the bottom part, and I'll keep rubbing it so that it creates a gradient from top to bottom. The water got a little bit flat at the bottom in the foreground, so I'm going to glaze over with the purple and a little bit of ultramarine blue so that the water kind of have a lead in from the foreground to the midground and the background. And my boat also looks really flat and weak, so what I'm going to do, so I'm going to add some gags in the boat, and whatever gag I'm adding on the boat, I'm going to be reflecting as it is. And if I'm adding a gag or detail on the first boat, so I'm going to be distorting and putting marks by leaving some water in the marks, and whereas in the last one I'll be reflecting as it is whatever detail I'm putting. And you can see I'm also doing the exact same thing what I'm doing now. I'll finish up with a little more details. I'm adding a little bit of a red detail at the end, so I'm also going to reflecting at the end as well. And I'm going to add a person so that we get the scale of the board as well, and I'm also going to be reflecting them as it is based on our reflections. And now it's your turn, and see this video and paint some reflections and paint some water, and let's see what you can come up with. Thanks everyone for watching this how to paint water for absolute beginners in watercolors. Let me know what you guys think about this painting in the comment section. If you want me to cover any of the subjects, write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or comment below. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And good luck with your painting, folks.